everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm truly humbled to see so many people here today. I think over the last 2 decades that I've been in and around workforce management, I've seen the profession grow, and from quite humble and basic beginnings to where we are today, and with workforce management principles being applied in ever more complex operations, being applied across so many different verticals, from the contact center to hospitality, to healthcare, to logistics, to high street retail, planning for desk-based workforces, mobile workforces, remote workforces, all different intricacies that we have to take care of. So yeah, as I was just saying, I think, so I'm really happy that you're all here. I think we'd all agree that the pandemic has exerted enormous change pressure in the last 12 months, with 2020 being the most disruptive years in recent history. But we're not yet out of the pandemic, but already so much has changed. Some of this change, such as accelerating already emerging trends of things like digitalization and remote working, will undoubtedly outlast the pandemic. Other changes we hope will cease to be a thing, or at least return to the levels prior to the pandemic, such as ongoing uncertainties that have taken such a big toll on us all, affecting every life milestone, from family, graduation, schooling, marriages, dating, employment. Of course, for us in workforce management, our biggest enemy is unpredictability or uncontrollability. So I'm sure we're all going to breathe a big sigh of relief once things start to stabilise. Today, we're going to share some discussion around what are the things that workforce management leaders and teams are focusing on in 2021. First half, I'm going to share some of the findings that you've said are your priorities this year. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my top 3 priorities as well. And then finally, I'm super excited to be joined by 3 highly experienced planning leaders, and we're going to chew the fat on some of the key topics that they believe are going to be a focus here for 2021 and beyond. Before we go into our first section though, I'm just going to hand you over to Dr. Shiva, who is the CEO and founder of the GWFM Forum, the brains and driving force behind the movement. Shiva's going to tell you a bit more about what the GWFM is all about and how each and one of you can be more involved. Shiva, over to you.
Thanks, Dirk. Hi, everyone. Friends, colleagues, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to one and all who have joined us. Trust me, we have 250 registered, and I'm sure that we're going to see all of you today. I'm so excited. Today is being the first event which is happening in your chapter, EMEA chapter. Okay? EMEA chapter is where we are starting and beginning the 2021 year steps, and we are here. It gives me a great pleasure and pride to welcome you to GWFM's EMEA chapter event. Today we have eminent speakers assembled. Is one of the happening WFM tool company is partnered with us, and we're going to learn about them a little later. And it's really honored and humbled to be here. And trust me, GWFM is your forum and your charter body, and we want to touch every WFM professional's heart and soul. The GWFM belongs to each one of you. Purpose of this GWFM, in fact, when we look back 5 years back, few of like-minded people gathered together. We thought that there's nothing much happening in WFM. We thought of a startup forum. We started in a small business school with 30 to 40 people, and we didn't know that it's going to grow big, so big. So we are exponentially growing, and this year we have chapters worldwide. We have 5 chapters, including EMEA chapter. EMEA chapter happens to be the biggest chapter in the world, and we have humbled and happy to have you. And what is this GWFM is about? All about knowledge sharing and creating professional networking platform. So what is it we do differently? And let me talk to you about what is it, how we started. In fact, 5 years back when we started this forum, just like any professional forum in B school, we didn't know that we're going to grow big. Doug, can you add the next slide, please? Yeah, GWFM is recently been known that we have been awarding body as far as products and as far as the best practices is concerned. In fact, we have been doing it since a couple of years. In fact, if you see the slide here, we had Exaware, KPMG, IBM, and again KPMG got award in 2019, and 2020 we had Sutherland and Concentrix got best practices about and nice, of course, and then future. So this year, trust me, we're going to have top 100 organizations who are going to participate for best practices and best products. You're going to see the wonderful things happening around the globe. I'm proud to say that, as Doug mentioned, I'm one more passionate guy in WFM. Right? We inaugurated first one. In fact, we had Mom's Day, Dad's Day, right? Teachers' Day, Doctor's Day. We didn't have a day for WFM professionals. Come on, we wanted to have one for all of us. We called 27 June as International WFM Professionals Day. In fact, we have been celebrating since last 3-4 years. Trust me, last year we had thousands of WFM professionals gathered together and we celebrated. And we got a bite from each one of them. And this year we're going to have a big number of WFM professionals. We want all of you to be celebrating with us. And we are like a non-profit organization registered in India, and then we have presence in Canada. We are a Food Education Institute, also chartered body in Canada, and then from US, South Carolina. And hope you all witnessed that we're the first one to do this international quiz program in the market. And trust me, now we have planned WFM Hackathon. Have you heard about WFM Hackathon? I heard about products, a lot of things, but WFM Hackathon is one of my dreams as being a design thinker. We have been thinking about this since a long time. We thought we'll do it. By next month, we have 2 days of 48 hours of hackathon. We want all of you to be registering here. And what is the GWFM does? I mean, we do events, roundtables, webinars, international summits, hackathons, as we said, and we have been known as awarding body for best practices and best tools. And we do executive interviews, including CXOs and WFM leaders. This year, you will hear more than 100 interview conversations with top global leaders. And we do publications, white papers, reports, trending reports, and magazine. Also, like, very good thing that, in fact, we've been thinking of launching maturity model by Q2 first month. We're going to launch this maturity model. Probably you'll get to know what it is and all. We'll keep some surprise for that. And then GWFM is the first one to affiliate with universities and business schools as far as WFM courses are concerned. Like we have valued where the courses are recognized and valued in the industry, and also like in academic area, including the fellowship and elite fellow programs which we are doing it. In fact, we do consulting, and very importantly, like GWFM has Innovation Center and Research Center too. We've been evolving. In fact, this year we want to support 10 WFM tech product companies, and we want to encourage WFM practices to come over here and practice. And you want to try out something new, come over here and we're going to help you. We have mentors and coaches who are supported by us. And what is new in WFM? We wanted to offer this, friends. Have you heard about data science in WFM? A lot of people learn data science, and applying in WFM becomes really very difficult, including Six Sigma, right? And design thinking, of course. We're the first one to pioneer this and want to provide great knowledge sharing and professional networking, and also world-class education as far as data science, design thinking, and Six Sigma and fellowship and PhD programs are concerned. With this, join us on our social media to know about GWFM. If you're not a member, look at our website and become a member. Reach out to us if you need any information. With this, you're going to learn more about GWFM. I'm privileged and humbled to be part of this group, and thank Doug for leading the group in EMEA and his fellow team members who've been really supporting since last few months. We want each one of you to be supporting, and let's make GWFM EMEA chapter is something like it's just a benchmarking in the world. And today we're going to witness best learning as far as 2021 priorities of WFM. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you after the session. With this, thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing all the speakers, eminent speakers speaking, and audience questions. With this, I hand over the control to Doug. Thank you so much, Doug.
Thank you, Shiva. Yeah, and I think it's brilliant that the GWFM exists. For so long, workforce management's been out there in this wilderness, yeah, very, very proud to be part of today, and very impressed with what Shiva's built over the last few years. If you haven't yet already been involved, absolutely get yourself involved. It's a great organisation to really expand your thinking and to network and understand new ideas. Okay, onto the event itself. Thank you very much. Just before we kick off that section, just a little bit of housekeeping. So Rachel here, that just appeared on your screen, is here to assist with any event coordination. So throughout the event, if you have any difficulties, please reach out to her via a private message, which you can do using the panel on the right-hand side of your webinar screen. She's also going to be collating and reading out any questions that you might have throughout the event. So as you listen, if there's anything that you want more clarity on, or you want to have a deeper understanding, please do raise that question. And to do that, on the webinar screen in the bottom right hand, you're going to find the question tab. So hopefully everyone finds that. If not, Rachel can help. Just reach out to her. And then at certain points, I'm going to pause to answer a few questions. And of course, with the limited time, I might not be able to get through every single question today. But if we don't, I'm very, very happy to commit to putting out an FAQ following the event. Great. Okay, so first section. What you're seeing here is an aggregation of the survey that we sent out to people that registered for today's event, plus all the comments that you provided when you first registered. So big thank you to all those that contributed. Seeing automation a lot here, real-time automation for sure, certainly a hot advancement as a trend in workforce management. In fact, we covered some of that topic in our last event in November, so check it out if you haven't already watched that recording on YouTube. There's a fantastic keynote from Martin Hill-Wilson on AI and automation that is well worth the time spent. Do by all means check that out. I think automation, for at least for me, and probably many of us here today, is beyond spreadsheets, or at least if you've already moved from spreadsheets and implemented a WFM system, I think automation means getting beyond automated scheduling, which is almost old news these days. It's beyond managing absences and attendance. It means automating those key daily, regular, but manual workforce management processes that follow logical decision trees, and in reality are just pure administrational tasks. For example, an employee not turning up for shift, also failing to notify that they're going to be absent, which usually results in the workforce management team keying AWOL into the workforce management system for that person, so that we have an up-to-date plan and such. This type of situation is fairly straightforward to automate, in all honesty, as you already have the if and the when trigger for your time and attendance tracking. And most workforce management systems, if they already don't have the capability to automate that, they have an API that you can use to create and update shifts based upon coded instructions. Other and more in-depth automation might include automating the scheduling of e-learning, where again, by using the API of your LMS system, you can draw out what mandatory e-learning is outstanding for each individual and automatically schedule that activity during the periods of the day. You can even, in theory, automate this in a real-time scenario. And this is a real new hot trend that's emerging from a few tech players. So imagine a scenario where less volume on the day triggers a real-time reforecast that then triggers an automated scheduling of that activity, which then potentially allows you to do hundreds and hundreds of e-learning sessions in the blink of an eye. So totally agree. There's a ton of things to go on in that space. I see a lot of mention around remote working or home working. This seems to be top of many people's minds at the moment. No surprise, I guess, given the forced home working that's needed to occur during the lockdown measures. Actually, this is also one of my top priorities this year as well, and I know the panelists that I'll introduce a little bit later have this in their key priorities as well. So let's come back to that one a little bit later. Workload mathematics for asynchronous messaging. Actually, it's also likely this is something to focus for me this year as well, as we're exploring the introduction of WhatsApp style messaging channel for our customers. Perhaps for another time, but actually the maths for this are not that complex or dissimilar to email actually. I mean, they're both forms of asynchronous channels, right? So I think where it becomes a little bit more complex often depends on how you're routing those contacts. But that's a subject for another time, and certainly a worthy one. And certainly asynchronous channels in contact centers are are becoming more and more prevalent on the scene. I see more training for WFM staff, yep, also a top priority for me. Developing analytical skill so that I can work around any limitation of the tools I'm using. Yeah, I'd say that in the modern world, it's becoming more critical for anybody and everyone to have some basic data skills. That's even if you're in a role that's less technical and more management. For me, the advantages are huge. They include better communication with technical teams, being independent. So how many times have we all been there when we've not been able to complete a piece of analysis because we couldn't get hold of the right data, right? Also, in my experience, it also helps to ask better questions and most importantly, better decisions, as these decisions become more based on data-driven than gut instincts. So yeah, totally agree there. So yeah, some interesting focuses here. Here are my top 3. So in workforce management, I often find that we can be quite one-dimensional in the way that we forecast and plan, focusing more on one possible outcome, when in reality, we all know that there are many outcomes. I think you might have heard me say before that the first rule of forecasting is all forecastings are wrong, just to what degree. Some things can be foreseen and some not so much. And the purpose of scenario planning is to help develop that information to plan for both unforeseen and foreseeable events. It also has the added and very important benefit of making decisions more data-driven. Can you imagine a world where engineers, for example, build bridges in a certain way because it just feels right, or doctors prescribe a course of treatment based on, say, a hunch? A bit of a sensitive topic right now, but very, very valid. There would be huge outcry, and rightly so, and it's very applicable in workforce management context as well. Scenario planning, it takes some time to develop this, and you need to have the right workforce management foundations already in place. So perhaps not one for a newly created workforce management team, but once you've embedded it in your organization, it can really elevate the workforce management team to new levels of importance for their organization that they're serving. For example, you can test the viabilities of your workforce plans against scenarios in order to identify weaknesses in that plan. It will help to inform strategic or business plans, inform budget forecasts from a bottom-up perspective, and still come across many budgets today that are still financed top-down. As well as, I think really importantly, assisting thinking and timing of planned new programs or planned new technology implementations. How many times have we all been in a place where we're a recipient of a change rather than timing the change for when it makes sense from an optimal perspective of the plan? Scenario planning can really add value there. So apart from what I've already mentioned, getting the foundations in place is important. But my advice to anyone looking to develop this part of their workforce management service is start small, especially if your business does not have a culture of data-driven decisions already. Going out to various different departments and teams, learning where their pain points are, you're going to uncover a ton of opportunity where workforce management can add value. And in doing so, you're also going to integrate the workforce management team deeper into an organization, which will mean that you're much more aware of what change is occurring around your business. So it has a double added benefit: one, to the business, and two, back to the plan, which then back to the business. So it's definitely a next level thing for a workforce management team. Another priority for me is of course, as I mentioned before, is around home working and making it a sustainable strategy post-pandemic. I think the effect of COVID-19 has been to dramatically accelerate remote working in an extremely short period of time, forcing companies of all sizes to adapt and adapt quickly to self-isolation measures. For all the benefits of remote working that it can bring, and by the way, I'm a big fan myself, it also has its downsides. And for workforce management, this often results in increased technical issues from agents, perhaps because they had a VPN or struggled to find reliable Wi-Fi. And slightly controversial, because if you read a lot of things right now, they're all talking about increased productivity, which, yeah, in my experience, of course, for those well suited to remote working, you can see huge leaps in their productivity. But for many, it means struggles. So, you know, struggles to unplug after work, loneliness, communication challenges, numerous distractions at work. And by the way, if you're a parent in lockdown at the moment, and my heart really does go out to you. I've been seeing so many difficult moments for parents. It's very tough to keep a young one occupied and still productive. And interestingly for me, most of the challenges that come with remote working are due to human issues. But we'll come back to this topic because I know this is one which the panelists are keen to talk about later as well. So, and last one in my top priority is to dedicate at least 10% of professional time in my team to some form of learning development activity. So a recent study by LinkedIn showed that most employees simply don't feel like they've got the time for learning. And in my experience, any workforce management team that's stating they're not busy, quite frankly, probably not doing everything they need to do to be effective anyway. So that leaves quite the time challenge, usually resulting in okay, we'll get to it later focus, rather than we need to do this now, otherwise we're dead focus. Yeah, organizational complexity, technology advances, they're all accelerating at light speed. And no matter what professional career path you take, if your own personal development does not yet also match the speed of advances around you, you're going to quickly left behind. So I think it's long overdue for workforce management teams to really start investing in the learning. And by the way, learning does not have to be about taking formal training courses. In fact, to me, there are, I guess, 3 types of learning that can all add huge value in the long run. Yes, the formal learning, like the training or e-learning programs. These, by the way, don't have to be purely workforce management technical in nature. Data management, business intelligence, project management, as well as soft skills around communication and presenting, they're all super important in a workforce management context. Another form of learning is social learning, such as listening or watching, participating in relevant webinars like you are today, watching instructional video or finding blogs to gain deeper insight. Additionally though, and this is one that is often overlooked, but can be really engaging, is joining and participating in discussion and collaboration on social media. And by the way, for those that don't know, I run a Telegram group for workforce management professionals for exactly that aim. So if you're not already part of the group, but you'd like to be, reach out to me after this event and I'll be happy to arrange for you to join. Then lastly, as that third category, is really about what I call project-based learning, which for me involves taking on challenges in order to innovate something, or maybe try a new process, or do something new that requires you to expand the way that you think and see things in a new light. This often is not seen as a learning, but in actual fact can be one of the most effective ways to expand your thinking. So I definitely encourage that you to get outside of your box and to really try that. You're not only going to add value to your organization through the innovation, but you're also going to start different things are going to start clicking to your benefit. But of course, there's nothing worse than building a personal development plan, identify how you're going to fill the gaps, and then struggle to find the time. So, as I said, this is why in 2021, a big aim for me and my team will be creating that time and space to really invest back. And by the way, one of the fantastic things about learning and development is that it's not only does it increases your capability, but in actual fact, it often can create something quite exciting that once it's been learned by an individual, can quickly spread throughout the rest of the team. Okay, so among many other things, they're my top 3 priorities in 21. How are we doing for time? Okay, great, not too bad. Let's go ahead and take some questions if there've been any. Rachel?
There's no questions.
No questions?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so just no problem. So just as a reminder, if you have any questions, be sure to type it in the question box in the control panel. And then Rachel it will read them out if we have any. Okay, great. Okay, let's move on to our second section, which is a panelist discussion. Rachel, if you can bring the panelists onto screen alongside myself. Cool, excellent. Okay, so it's a great pleasure for me to introduce a panel of experts today. First up, Dia Giovanni, who I've known personally for a number of years. He's highly experienced and has been heading up planning teams for many, many years in a wide spectrum of sectors and industries. Matt, do you want to just give a brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Doug. So my name is Dia Giovanni. I'm been working in workforce planning for a long time, probably more than 20 years now in different guises. I'm currently working for Asda, supermarket retailer in the UK, on a short-term contract. Recent experience has been with Free Mobile assets in Romania, looking after their back office from a planning perspective, and also had the opportunity to work with Doug at Hastings and Tony at E.ON. So good to see some friendly faces. And Andre and I met the other day. I'm really pleased to be here.
Thank you, Matt. Next up, Andre, also a really highly experienced planner and residing as the global director for workforce optimization at Farfetch. Andre, can you also give a brief introduction to yourself?
Hi, Doug. Hi, everyone. So like I said, I'm speaking from Portugal. My name is André. I today lead teams across workforce management, data analytics, return on investment and optimization, as well as automation. My main focus over the last few years has been really trying to scale operations worldwide, multiple locations, over today with over 800 people. And really my priorities on the day-to-day and my team's priorities are really there to maximize efficiency, be enablers of predictability and accurate planning, as well as sustainable growth. And I think sustainability is a huge topic today, and how can we do it right, well, according to our goals and long-term plans for either profitability or really making sure that our plans are driving our teams we support to be successful.
Fantastic. And finally, but certainly not least, Tony, not Anthony, because apparently if you call him Anthony, you're in trouble with his mother, I think.
That's it.
But
yep.
But certainly not least, Tony, based out of Switzerland, currently residing as the Director of Resource Solutions for Sunrise Communication. Tony, do you want to give yourself an introduction as well?
Yeah, so currently based in the UK, but my role is in Zurich, Switzerland, which makes for an interesting commute each week prior to lockdown. That was. So my current role, responsible for long and short-term planning, intraday management, or we call it steering, and also ICT, which is the ACD and IVR routing. So cover those three kind of disciplines and help to sort of bring the plan to life, as it were, both from a steering and core routing perspective. My experience has been predominantly in the planning function, although I have ventured into reporting and analytics in my previous roles with E.ON. But yeah, really good to be involved today. Nice to meet you all.
Fantastic. So first topic, workforce management professionals, and what do we need now versus before? How are those roles? How are they going to evolve into something new, something else? As I mentioned at the start of this event, I think we've come a long way in workforce management certainly since I started out. But the pandemic has been a disruptor and driver of change in so many ways. Even before the pandemic, the workforce management profession it was in a constant state of flux. As teams across the world continue to evolve thinking and push boundaries. Andre, to you first. As a profession, where do you think we are today, and how do you see planning roles needing to evolve? Well, in your organisation, but on the whole, in the near and long future, and what do you think? How do you think they need to evolve?
I will start by saying that I would love to have hours to speak about this topic, but let's try to make it short. I think there is a lot to be said, especially nowadays. We have been debating, and you introduced that quite well. Professionals over the last decade, WFM professionals have been managing manual contacts and really kind of taking their expertise to a certain closed scope. And nowadays, is that enough for the WFM professional? And there is a lot of questions that can be asked, which is connected to when we look at metrics that we measure, are they enough? Does it make sense for retention and to be only marketing, or repurchase to be only marketing, or service journeys and customer experience to be only to the design teams, and process to be only on continuous improvement? So the answer for me is no. I think the WFM professionals really need to evolve into creating better stories around what's happening. And I think connecting our forecast to top line, the sales, subscriptions, acquisitions, depending on what the business you are in, but then having capacity planned and delivered connected to the bottom line, which is normally just cost. But is it enough? Does it make sense to look at retention, LTV, customer traction, conversion? I think there is a lot of kind of different scopes and different metrics that are coming in. And if we look to what was before, I mean, typically you would see forecasting being guys with good analytical skills, that it's someone that easily can go around Excel and just work with the WFM tools and just pull some data and kind of create some projections. Same with planning, with I would say a bit more knowledge across customer service industries and service industries, but still you look at it and you add like scheduling, real-time management, and then data started at the time. I think for me it's a huge question mark. Like, do you have accurate or quality data to work with? Most of the time you just rely on the tools you are having, and that's it. And I think today, and connecting back to what you just said earlier, education and recognizing the workforce management professionals, it's a must. And we need to make sure that we find that time for development, and not only the time, but we find the right development plan for each role. My personal feeling, and that's what I'm doing with my teams, like the roles are evolving. So forecasting is closer than ever to data science roles. So if our professionals today don't evolve down that path, I think that will be a point in time that we need to start sourcing data science professionals. Same with planning. Planning is becoming more and more kind of consulting roles, people that really, like you said, playing for scenarios, creating hypotheses, testing them, really seeing what to do within the business plan, and not just reacting to calls and contacts that are coming in on board without context. Same with scheduling. So it's one of the critical parts, our scheduling plans, and how much automation can we bring on? Can we have like developers kind of creating self-service on our scheduling plans? And like there are different openings for profiles. Same for real-time management. Can we create proactive alerts? Do we still need to look at the dashboard and just make a decision based on that, or can we have some layer of automation bringing it to us what we need to do and just work with options instead of a spinning point in a problem? So I think there is a lot to be said, and I think data is definitely a very important piece. And to summarize, I would say it's not only about contacts and interactions, but I think it's about experiences. And for my team specifically, and for teams that are within the workforce management space, I need to start looking at our business and what are we doing. So in the end of the day, our plans, the way we are forecasting, the way we are planning, will impact our experience to customers, will impact retention, will impact customer acquisition, will impact friction on the customers. And if we start getting better plans, and if we start connecting it better to the storytelling, to the business, we'll be on a much better position to become profit centers, to really tell stories that are different across what the workforce management professionals can do and the impact they have, better support to the teams we are supporting. We can have investments for better tools. We can have loads of investments on professionals and development plans. And I think in the end of the day, it's our visibility inside the organization that becomes way more rich and more valuable to invest in workforce management professionals.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think when I first started out, it was probably about 70% administrational. Click this button, move it to this. Or if even when you were forecasting, you'll often be one-dimensional in terms of you only follow one path, and often it would be based on a spreadsheet that's maybe somebody built elsewhere that's left the business, and you don't really know what you're doing, but you're clicking the buttons anyway. And yeah, with the emergence of things that now automating this, even the implementation of a workforce management system changed the dynamics of a team, and we start to automate as big data becomes available. It really does. It's a kind of evolve or die type scenario. It's like evolution, but within workforce management. Tony, from your perspective, are you seeing kind of similar type emergences for your teams as well?
Yeah, I think my experience, and I've been to a lot of sort of WFM forums and had a lot of discussions, and I think what's really interesting is for me, everyone's at different stages, Doug. So I think having accredited groups like the GWFM and in the UK we have another forum professionals, I think is really good to bring some standards into the WFM space. I think one of the challenges that I've found is that I think because everyone is at a slightly different place. Some teams are more mature than others. Some are still using Excel. Some are using WFM. When it comes to sharing best practice, it's really hard to kind of always be on the same page with other users because everyone's at a slightly different place. So I think for me, where we've talked today a lot about training, about accreditation, about getting standards and really setting the bar higher than ever. I think that's how I see it moving forward, where it becomes a lot more professional. I think in the past, organizations have promoted from within, so they've taken agents off the phone and made them a scheduler, and then that scheduler then is self-trained by somebody else who's done the job before, and they only know what they know, right? They don't know what else is out there. So
do you know what, Tony? I joined when the team was called Mission Control. I thought it was going to be going to space. So I was like, it's very true.
Yeah.
That most of us did arrive into workforce management, not coming from a statistical background, but coming from speaking to customers, right? That's very true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and I think the training's often side by side. You're taught by somebody who's done the role before, who somebody showed them a few years ago, and they only know what they know, which obviously they'll do the best that they can, but that knowledge is not always. It's a bit like Chinese whispers, Doug. You start off with one message, and by the time it lands with a third or fourth recipient, it's not always the right way of doing things. So for me, I think the more we can share best practice. I mean, my current organization, we've recruited externally as well as internally to try and get that more experience on board. We I think, like a lot of organizations, we're great at the contact center stuff, but when it comes to back office, non-voice, some of the new channels we're starting to look at, like WhatsApp, we're very immature, so I think a lot of the comments were already made around really using data and really understanding that customer journey end to end. I think the other thing for me that we've talked about that still is not really materializing is Omnichannel. So we've talked for a long time about how do we join up this end-to-end customer journey when a customer moves from one channel to another. I'm still not seeing that in reality. I think there's a lot of really good theoretical conversations and tools out there.
It's push from the technology side of things, but actually implementing it from a process and people side, not so easy.
No, how do you link the digital journey that customers have online? I've seen digital really being used as a lot for demand deflection, not really joining up that customer journey. So I think that's certainly where I see the future going, really starting to materialize some of these concepts more.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good points. Matt, do you agree with what's been said, and would you add anything there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just reflecting, I guess, on the challenges of workforce management maybe 10, 15 years ago, when it was kind of software's there, as you said, a lot of administration, Excel possibly for capacity planning and bringing the two together, versus what we're looking for from a workforce management professional now, which is, I think, intellect, but also an inquisitive mind. So as well as delivering the job, which will always involve an element of administration, actually picking up Tony's point around omnichannel and being able to sort of reach out to areas like transformation teams, process designers, etc., and add value in terms of organisational thinking, and then bring that back into planning is where I see the biggest challenge. From a recruitment point of view, I guess we all have different challenges, and sometimes we need an expert in a particular system or somebody with a particular experience. But the thing that always impresses me most is an inquisitive mind, somebody who wants to learn and just wants to shine. I think gone are the days where we're going to have individuals who are professional in a very niche area, like I'm going to be a real-time analyst, I'm going to be really good at it, and I'm going to do that forever, or I'm going to be a scheduler on Teleopti or whatever the system is, and I'm going to be great at it, and I'm going to do that forever. I think teams are more multi-skilled. They're looking for more creativity amongst the team, and from a career development point of view, the common denominator for me is that inquisitive mind, to repeat myself.
Do you know what? It's interesting because, like, from my perspective, when I hire somebody, the two residing things that I'm always looking out for. Okay, yes, you need to have some technical skills. That's useful in this job. But yeah, I look for people that have a passion for it, because this can be a difficult career, and it can be really complex, and it can be a bit stressful at times. So passion, but also that curiosity. Yeah, it's so important, because curiosity drives the thought to go out there and actually find out, how can I improve things. Innovation doesn't come unless you're curious about it. Otherwise, you just end up doing the same thing over and over again. So true.
Absolutely.
So true. Okay. I think I could probably talk about that one for the next hour, honestly, because this kind of links very much into my passion as well. But let's go on to the next topic. So our second topic is about making the most of a workforce management system. But before we dive into that, I'm quite interested to find out what everyone here today is where they're at with their system. Let's try the poll and see if this works. With my start, here we go. Okay. So you should hopefully everybody be seeing a poll that's appeared up on your screen. I can't see how we are participating here, but if you can select and we'll just give 30 seconds here. So how much of your available functionality do you utilize from your WFM system? Less than 25%, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100. And then Rachel, if you can call close on once we've had pretty good participation. Cool. And I can't see the results. Excellent. Well, that went really well. Anyway.
There we go.
Okay, so interestingly, 50 to 75. Yeah, I think the most fascinating thing for me here is that we don't have more in that 75 to 100. Actually, it's better than I thought. I typically find in my experience that I go in the different organisations that I've been into. Actually, my general experience has been more around the 25 to 50 mark. Believe it or not. So yeah, it's very interesting. So yeah, Tony, I think this is one area for you, isn't it, that you're looking to expand upon. How's it a priority for you, and what's your approach in making the most of your workforce management system?
Yeah, so the background here is when I first joined Sunrise, we were using one solution, IWFM, and we've taken the decision to go to the NICE product. But we've gone a little bit further than just implementing a new WFM solution. We've actually rolled it out to our outsource partners. So we have around 80% of our resource actually third parties who handle the volume on our behalf. And that's split across 3 different providers. So often we can have as many as 4 different contributing factors into the plan, which makes it super complex. So, one of the challenges for us is really when we talk to our outsource partners around planning and WFM and how they use the tool, everyone's got a slightly different definition of, even simple things, Doug, like what's an FTE? Some of our partners, it's 45 hours, others it's 37 hours, So trying to get that common kind of language around definitions, around how you calculate shrinkage, is in itself a big piece of work. So for me, our real focus around the WFM is one, aligning our definitions, our terminology, so that when we're all using the tools and the system, the WFM platform, we're all on the same platform, we're using it the same way, and we're having the same inputs and the same expectations of when the plan's submitted. But then there's this trade-off where we have a volume forecast, and we allocate that forecast across our partners, but then the partners will come back and say what they can handle against what we expect them to handle, and then we want to be able to reallocate those calls. So if one partner can't handle 25% of the volume, we can give some of the shortfall to another partner, and at the moment all of that is done through a separate tool, and it runs alongside the WFM solution. Whereas for me, now that we're all on the same WFM platform, I want to run the plan through the WFM tool. I want to set the forecast through the WFM. I want to allocate the resource percentage through the WFM based on the available resources. And we've got a really strong kind of working relationship with our WFM partners, and we're working hard with the different teams, etc. But it's a real challenge, Doug, and it's something that, for me, a lot of organizations I know, use outsourced partners, but I don't think we're great at how we kind of share our WFM tools with them and how we kind of align the plan so there's one version of the plan. We're not sending Excel spreadsheets backwards and forwards and all that good stuff. So that's one side of it. And then the other side for me is the new platform that we bought has a lot of new functionality. So it's got AI forecasting, where it chooses which forecast algorithm it uses depending on the information that it's getting. Absolutely. And it's something at the moment that I know exists and is running in the background, but I really want to understand how we utilize that to its full capacity, to use that AI, because we all know there's different forecasting models out there, but I really want to tap into, are we making the most of that? We've spent a lot of money on this new system, and are we really maximizing the opportunities in terms of our forecast accuracy? So those funny, are kind of like the two. Yeah,
it's fun. Yeah, I recognise both those themes actually that you just talked about. So I have similar challenges myself. I don't. You've reached a utopia moment for me in terms of being able to get your partners on the same workforce management system.
Yeah, it was hard. It was really
I don't know how you did that, but so I have to talk to you online. The challenge for me is from an in-house perspective in the organisation I work for, it's quite small. So the number of licenses that we can buy is, or the license price, let's call it, we don't have the economies of scale that from a big outsourcer, 50,000 seats or whatever it might be. So their pricing difference for an outsourcer is often a lot lower than it is for a client side, especially for a small client side like we are, and we can't negotiate on price. So therefore, getting them all on the same platform is a challenge. But I think this is an area that, from a technology perspective, really does need to be sharpened up. I think that's one of the things that hasn't yet sort of been fully developed. So for anyone that's from a workforce management perspective, that is involved in technology on this, please, this is an area that I think we all would agree is
I'd love to hear from anyone who is doing it really well and the journey that they've been on, to kind of get there, because it is difficult. You're right. Even getting the partners on the same WFM, was super difficult. You're absolutely right, Doug. One of our partners already had, nice WFMs. It was a bit like, well, what am I gaining from moving on to your WFM? So there was a lot of. Whereas others were still using Excel spreadsheets, so for them it was I was pushing an open door. Just getting on the WFM is not enough. It's then how do you then, utilize it to its full potential, and as I say, bring everything into the WFM so that plan production and the simulation of your scheduling and everything. I'd love to have a world where, when we generate a set of schedules, we're running the schedules at the same time across all of the partners. That's utopia for me. Whereas at the moment, it's all done offline. So
the other point that you mentioned there, is an interesting one as well, because around the AI and the use of AI. Because the reason I say this is that, so I've always endorsed that when you're using a workforce management system is to spend the time to really get to know it. Don't go beyond just the training that you might have received when you know, click this button and test it and understand it. But that's difficult in a black box scenario with AI. So recently we use an algorithm for forecasting, also in my organisation, which is developed by Facebook. The problem with it is that when you come from a forecasting background, especially with spreadsheets, you know exactly what methodology is being used there. But when this black box AI suddenly appears with a forecast after 5 seconds, going, how did you do that? And I trust it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an interesting phenomenon.
All the magic's happening behind the scenes, and you just get the output. Absolutely.
And I think that comes back to Andre's point around I think there is a need for us to, at least have somebody in our team that is veering, maybe even is a data scientist.
It's data science,
Otherwise, how can you get the best out of your system if you don't really understand what it's doing?
Exactly. How can you trust the outputs if you don't understand the mechanics underneath it? I agree.
Matt, from your side, so you've used various different workforce management systems, haven't you, over your time? Do you find similar sort of, as you've gone around, certainly because I know you've done a lot of contracting as well, do you find that there is a lot of organisations that aren't using their workforce management team fully, and what sort of advice do you typically go in when you go in and find that scenario?
Yeah, so the survey results were really interesting. I was expecting far more in the sort of 0 to 25 to 50.
Yeah, me too.
However, I've probably got a view, Doug, that it's not a bad place to be if that's what you need your WFM to do and you're using it really well. So I see this dichotomy where some companies are trying to use all kinds of widgets and functionality with WFM, rescheduling 10-minute breaks and intraday reforecasting for small teams, blending confusion, etc. Meanwhile, they're missing the absolute basics in terms of getting the forecast right, or providing the schedules to the colleagues and getting feedback around operational delivery early on. So it's kind of, for me, I'm trying to think of an analogy. It's a bit like, I'm going to go for one. So if you're climbing a ladder, every time you climb a step, you check that you're secure before you move on. Whereas I think some companies are just trying to get to the top of the ladder no matter what, and they're not really maximising benefit along the way. So what is the point of the WFM? I think is probably the first question. What are we trying to achieve? We want great forecasts. We want to understand how many people we need. We want to be able to run scenarios around if we deploy this way or that way, help with shifts. But always asking that question, what do you want, and then how are you using it? Trying to bring the two together would be my tip. Tony's scenario is unique, and I clearly need to pick his brains because I've recently joined an organisation where there are 3 outsourcers on 3 different WFMs, and there's a view that maybe one WFM owned by the client and rolled out to the 3 outsourced partners might be the right solution. My instinct is fairly expensive and fairly complex, and probably fairly time consuming in terms of taking them back before they move forwards. And Tony, I think you're probably one of the only organisations I've found that kind of well along that journey. It almost sounds like you've mandated it. If you want to work with us, this is the way you be interesting.
That's not the only organisation as well that I've not necessarily personally talked to, but I've heard about as well, that have almost thrown it into the contract as a solution.
And I think that's what we need to do. We always need to say it's a contractual requirement. If you want to work with us, if you want to be our supplier of choice, this is our expectation.
Yeah.
But do you know what? I still come back to the fact that, and I find this a lot with workforce management systems, that, like, for example, ones that probably haven't changed on the back end much over the last 2 decades. Certainly, they've changed their front end, they've improved things, but there's still a lot to be desired. And it comes back to, we're doing these things, like, for example, putting them into the contract, but there should be a technical solution for this. There should be a solution where systems can talk to each other. I mean, most have got pretty dynamic APIs. Andre, from your side of things, how do you find? maybe you've got the utopia situation. I don't know.
I was going to say it's the perfect segue to what I was hearing and taking some notes. And I think the question you asked about, I was surprised with the results as well. But I think the question I would complement is the software working for you, or are you working for the software? And I think that's a fundamental change. Changes completely the equation. Because even if you have the tool, but then you need to create Excel files to support decisions, because you are not taking that from the software. Then you need technical analysis to time management or just whatever it is, because you are not able to take it from the software. And then you look at your WFM solution, and you are like, okay, what I'm really taking it for. So what I'm looking for, is it to support the WFM professionals? Is it to support the operation? Is it just to take over admin tasks? And when you start answering these questions, and it becomes for me more clear, like you said, most tools didn't change in over decades, or if they changed, they minimal changes to just please some of the customers, and they are not kind of looking to how the business is evolving. I think if they don't provide APIs, and you touch this on the data science, which I completely agree, it's like forecasting cannot be and will not continue to be just making some simple projections based on trends and numbers. You need to look at the different scope. You need to look at what's happening with the business. Every time I'm forecasting, how do I compare it to the top line? Like, what story does that forecast tell me? And like you said, scenario testing. Like, if this happens, does it match like my projection? And then connecting to this conversation about, should we force the same system? Should we just like try to echo the system across the same partners, or like have different? I think it's all about APIs. If the systems integrate, I don't care what you use, as long as I have these specific requirements. This is the data I need to get in every 15 minutes, every hour, whatever it is, and then they communicate. It gets more seamless, and the system starts echoing itself. I think that's kind of like where we need to be in a perfect world. Of course, we are really far from that reality, I would say. But I think in the end of the day, it's about what you want from the software, and if you can build self-service on top of that software to the different users, the WFM professionals, the teams that are using, and the advisors, as well as some of the admin tasks, perfect. But if you are using the software just for, like, let's say you are using 25%, but what you need is just, for instance, scheduling, and you have the perfect scheduling, I mean, good, but are you using it just for the professionals? Are you using it just for the operation? I think these questions start becoming more relevant, and really this touches with the development of the role, because over time, as the business evolves, if what you are able to do is pretty much just producing that schedule, and you wait, I don't know, how long does it take to produce the schedule? Even with your perfect system, how long does it take? How many hours of validations, of back and forth conversations you have with different teams to make it close? Like, when there are changes to the plan, how long does it take for you just to immediately understand what's happening? And I think really there is a lot to be said here. This is like probably a long conversation, but I think in order for you to take the best advantage for the solution, you first really need to answer what you really want, what you want to do, and really, if you don't think integrations first, I think that down the line you will be looking 2 years, 3 years from now, I need to replace it. And then you blame the software, but probably you need to blame yourself, because you are not the one setting properly the expectations for that stuff.
I think that's a really good point, actually, and I think quite an interesting one, because I don't think when people go out for RFPs or workforce management systems that they often put the API and how flexible the API is in as part of their requirements, or at least a strong part of their requirements. It's usually around having the functionality rather than what is capable of it integrating. But I think workforce management systems would at least have the potential to almost be the central point of contact for many different systems, because they're building a plan, right? So the more you can integrate it in your words seamlessly, I think that's a huge advantage.
And if you allow me to be a bit controversial, sure, I really think over time, WFM software, the ones that are super heavy on forecasting, even the ones that I know that are the better, I mean, having 2-3 forecasting modules alone, independently running, just sometimes I use one, sometimes I use the other, that's not enough. I mean, you need to probably use 5 different systems. So I can use one, for instance, to forecast calls, one to forecast offline communications, one just to forecast SLAs, different methods, different algorithms. And I think the softwares, in the end of the day, I need to be able to either use the system if I can, or if I have better forecasting capabilities, again, through data science, through different professionals. I just need a tool that I can feed in my own forecasting. Again, seamless, whenever, real-time, hourly, weekly, whatever I want, with the breakdown I want, and then have the system being the source of truth for everyone, kind of an aggregator for these integrations. And I really think most of the softwares are spending millions of euros and dollars trying to sort it out, when in reality, like, I really think the forecasting, there is not a white glove solution for every business. Most softwares are super like black box closed, that if your business is just slightly different or more complex, does it fit? And then you blame the software, but it works for someone else. So I think we need to, again, open APIs, really allow for deeper integrations, have the software becoming that source of truth and the tool that everyone can use, but it needs to be open both ways. So I need to be able to feed into the system the same way the system needs to feed back to me and the teams that use it. I think that's critical in this space. And I really think from what I'm seeing, within the next probably 3 to 5 years, most of the big players, if they are not yet thinking about it, they are already trying to do something about it, some of them. And the newcomers will just, because they will be API first, they will be data first, they will just, in a matter of years, be the new
build for cloud as well, not being converted into cloud. Yeah, very true. It's actually, you've challenged my thinking around the forecasting side of things as well. I've always said that that's one of the areas in the workforce management system that's so underdeveloped, and yes, we have started to see some of the vendors really push that. But the interesting thing that I'm seeing is that the biggest difficulty in forecasting is interlacing the business change and how that might change your forecast. So history, like you know, in stockbrokers, the history is not always a good guide for the future. And so like a prime example of what I mentioned before, we're using this Facebook algorithm, which is really very good, but the company that N26, the company I work for, their history is a really bad indicator, because so much has changed in a startup type organization that almost makes it irrelevant what history that you do have, and therefore it became so important. And I don't see any forecasting tools that are in workforce management team that really focus on like propensity to contact from a change. Is that the same, Tony, that you find as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Doug. And then you end up tracking things in spreadsheets, and and I think it ties in with what you talked about earlier around, the scenario modeling piece, because once you've done that scenario modeling, you want to do the tracking, don't you? You want to see how did that modeling that I do, how did that actually play out once your change goes live? And you're right, I don't see any functionality in any WFM tool that allows you to do that. So yeah, I think you then end up where it's not joined up. So it's to Andre's point. You've got a really expensive WFM tool, and then you've got all of these other subsystems running off the back of it because it doesn't do what you want it to do. It's so true, so true.
Another topic. Yeah, go ahead, Matt. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I think this is the point you made right at the beginning in terms of the pace of change in modern society. So, no matter what industry we're in, history and seasonality and cycles are changing constantly, and therefore the ability to kind of say, I've got great data for the last 5 years, and I'm going to use that to help me understand the next year. It's just reducing year on year, decade on decade. That was probably okay in pre-internet world in the 1990s. Definitely not okay.
Dead spot on, right? But actually thinking about it, if your organization isn't changing drastically, you're probably gonna fall down at some point, or your competitors are going to take
behind.
Yeah, exactly. So it really does play very much into that space.
I'm trying to think of an industry where history might be a great proxy for the future, and there might be some industries that are really heavily dependent upon seasonality from weather. I'm thinking maybe like 999.
I was going to say that, but now, look at the last year, right?
We're basically locked down. Their profiles will be all over the place.
I would say the one probably that the past is the best proxy is probably utility companies like electricity, because the seasonality it varies, but it's connected with winter, it's connected with people staying at home. Now with the pandemic, it's a bit different, but those are easier to predict. And then you have your invoice coming exactly on fixed date, so you can get patterns around that. I think those are the easiest ones to tackle, in my personal opinion. And again, I mentioned marketing before. Marketing has evolved. I don't even have a way to kind of compare it to what it was 10 years ago. And now with social networking, we speak a lot about service, but marketing is doing the same. And you can have a post that drives traffic to your organization that you didn't prepare for. It's impossible to predict. But then you start understanding, okay, if this specific post had this impact, if it happens again, I at least know what to expect based on that impact. So I don't need to forecast for that, but if I understand it, and if I start tweaking different patterns and different kind of forecasting exercises, I would put it this way, and backcasting, you start understanding that there is more than just producing a set number of contacts I'm going to receive. So there is patterns, human patterns, human behaviors that you can understand, you can learn, and you can have a library of different events that based on certain triggers, you can just understand, like, does it make sense for me? Does it not? What should I do? How do I learn to do it better the next time? And I really think most businesses are evolving in that direction, especially with so many tech companies kind of booming, so many new startups that are growing fast and just becoming kind of like fintech companies that really are different in nature, and we need to be prepared for that, I think. And most of softwares, like if you use the same forecasting method for 5, 6, 10 different companies, you will get dramatically different results. And it might work 10 years ago with banking or just utilities, but will not work now. And let's face it, and I think unless you are doing, like you said, like efforts on solving it, you are just expecting that the numbers will be right one day, and then you are like, okay, it was right. And then the day they start becoming wrong again, you just don't know why. And you keep asking, is it the software? Probably I need a different software.
Yeah, it must be the software.
It must be the software.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, blame it on the tool. Okay, well, I think this is a topic we could probably talk about for the whole rest of the time. But let's just pause there for a second to see if there's any questions, Rachel.
No, I haven't seen any.
None at all? Excellent. Okay, moving on then.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
What?
I do. Oh, yeah. Gone missing. Yes. I'm so sorry about it. So, actually, there's quite a few number being sent. So, first, go with the question from Carlos Muzo. How do WFM professionals better navigate the field of technology offerings to meet their priority goals?
It's quite a broad subject. Matt, because I'm looking at your face, how would you answer that one?
So in the time
Yes, Matt.
time, I'm going to ask you the question again. Can I ask the question again, please, Rachel?
Is how do WFM professionals better navigate the field of technology offerings to meet their priority goals?
Okay, so I'm going to assume that's from a selection perspective in terms of selecting appropriate vendors. If so, I think for me it's around two things. Obviously, statement of requirements, understanding what the problem is that you're trying to fix, and therefore what type of challenges you face, which the system can counteract or help provide, but also being very aware of your capability in the technology. So again, we can find all singing, all dancing systems which are brilliant but require huge specialist knowledge, or we can find off-the-shelf solutions which maybe after half a day or a day you can get value from. And you really need to be clear in terms of that continuum where you're pitching yourself on the journey. If you procure technology which is complex to utilise, you have to ensure you have sufficient resource and capability to be able to use the technology. Otherwise, you're paying for something that's, I'm going to say, sort of sexy, but it's ultimately going to sit on the shelf and isn't going to achieve what you need. So I'd just encourage you to reflect on the ability to utilise the solutions. I've interpreted that question one way. It may or may not be what was meant.
I would compliment, if you allow me, Doug, just saying that
please,
for me, it's about partnership. Regardless of the vendor you select, if you cannot build a partnership where it's win-win for both, you are not working with the right solution. So they need to not develop a specific roadmap just for you, but they need to listen to your pain. You really need to be able to understand what the roadmap they are coming to, what reason is coming that to you, and really build as a partnership where you have regular touch points. You can share what you are planning on doing. You have open communication, as well as communication not only from the tool development, but service in general. So if you have questions, how open are they to share, to sit down with you and work with you through that solution? I think that's key for me. It's partnership. It's my key word. That's the way I would answer. But I super aligned with what you said, man.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I am conscious of time. I know we've got a few other topics. Super interesting though. And yeah, Andre, Matt, I totally agree with what you just said there. I think partnership and also understanding the tool. So many times we all go after the shiny thing, only to realise that actually this is not adding a lot of benefit, but it's costing my business a lot of money. How many times have we seen these softwares that are sitting on the shelf because somebody thought it was a great idea to buy, but in reality it doesn't have much benefit? That's very true. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to our third subject, which is, I think, really topical, given where we're all at, and we're all probably sitting at home in lockdown right now. Well, certainly I am. Rachel, can you put up the second polling question, please? Excellent. So polling question: to what level are you looking to continue to utilize remote working post-pandemic? Are you planning for your agents to be 100% remote working in your organization post-pandemic? Click option 1. If you expect a 50-50 mix of agents remote or office-based post-pandemic, click 2. And if your org is going to be mainly still office-based post-pandemic, click 3. And of course, if you're not really sure, is the option 4. And then let's give it a few minutes to have everybody to complete. And if you can close it down, Rachel, I'm sure what the participation is right. Okay, interesting. So definitely predominantly 50-50. I guess that's probably not too much of a surprise. Lots of uncertainty. Thinking it depends on the industry that you're working in. Certainly, banking or financial services is a tough nut to crack for home working and all the security type challenges that you might have. And some people that will cease to be an option. I guess I'm a little surprised on that, but at the same time not. Depends, like I say, on the industry. Lots of people, 13% that are going after 100% home working, which is definitely a noble aim. Okay, thanks for that, Rachel. So back to the panelists. Matt, what do you think are the critical things that need to be considered when optimizing a remote contact center? And this doesn't necessarily have to be workforce management, right? So there's lots of things that we interface. And I think I mentioned earlier around the challenges, the human side of it actually plays into the productivity side of it for us workforce management. So there's added benefit there. But what do you think are the critical things?
Yeah, so I'll probably answer Doug in a roundabout way by just sort of reflecting where we were a year ago. So a year ago, for most organisations, there wasn't a lot of optionality. It was, we need to create a home-based workforce, otherwise we can't run our business. So companies that probably thought about it or spoke about it for years, or maybe even dabbled a bit, were suddenly sort of all in, so to speak. Then there was so can we get the technology working? Can we make it work? Tick, tick, tick. Then I think moved on to, okay, but can we now manage performance and productivity? And how are we going to sort of communicate with our advisors, keep them up to date? Kind of been through quite a bit of pain, obviously, and there's been some learnings for a lot of organisations. Now, hopefully, we've got some options moving forward. The world is going to be a better world. I'm not quite sure when, but let's be positive. So as we sort of move through, companies have got options, which, as per your poll, could be let's go back to where we were, everyone back in the office, or on the other end of the continuum, let's carry on as we are. I think what I'm seeing from a WFM planning perspective is actually, I think one of the panelists used the phrase when I was chatting to them, fairly net neutral from a pure planning perspective. Most of the advisors are delivering productivity akin to what they would achieve in the office. There's some potential benefits around flexibility of shifts and what have you. There's probably some potential pain around shrinkage, additional communication time, etc., etc. So if we call that net neutral, it then moves towards people strategy. How do we get advisors and consultants who are engaged, going to stay with the organisation, are going to be able to give great quality experience for customers, etc., etc. And what I'm seeing is real varied thinking in organisations. Some, I think, are very focused on tenure of advisors for home working. So they're saying for new recruits, we would like to bring them into an office environment, we would like to support them in a grad bay, and then as they become more skilled and they improve their proficiency, we would enable them to work from home, and then that journey might
almost like a benefit. Yeah.
Yeah, I've written down recognition of proficiency rather than reward. So I'm not hearing people say, instead of getting a 10% pay rise, we'll let you work from home. But I'm absolutely hearing after 6 months, assuming you pass probation, we would look for you to be at home 2 to 3 days a week. And after a year, if you can hit all your quality measures, fully being at home. So that appears to be almost like a HR people strategy, which is emerging in a lot of organisations. My other observations are that I don't think there's any appetite to take risk in the way organisations did before. Single location, single buildings. I think whilst organisations have done that from a cost point of view and kind of parked BCP, I don't think they want to make that mistake again. So I think they're always asking the question, what if we have to go home? How can we de-risk one location or one supplier or one vendor or one part of the world? I think that debate continues, and we see lots of organisations embracing complexity. So whereas they wanted one supplier or maybe an in-house operation in one city, they felt it was easier and cheaper to train, they seem to now be saying, let's have 2 or 3 partners. Let's not have our eggs in one basket. I'm not sure if I've answered your question or gone off in a different direction, Doug.
No, I think that it's all super valuable, right? So it's very easy for us to dismiss it as net neutral, and I think to some degree it is. But it does bring its own challenges, and I think there isn't probably a workforce management team here today that hasn't had some challenge as a result of their workforce going remote. Sure. It's more around sort of identifying, what can we do to improve that, and I do think we play a big part in communication, and I think we play a big part in also identifying opportunity for those that might be struggling. So what I mean by that is that, and I sort of go back to my previous organisation where I rolled it out in a program for about 200 to 300 remote workers. These are all existing staff. When we first did it, literally thousands signed up, and I was like, well, how the hell are we going to do that? We can't pick all of these people. We've only got 200 in the pilot. What we found though was that as people went home, they actually didn't, a good 80% of them didn't enjoy it, and they wanted to come back in the office. They were missing the interactions, they were lacking the communication, and there was big learnings around that it doesn't always suit everybody, and as a result of that, I think workforce management does play, because we've got our fingertips, especially the real-time team, we've got our fingertips on how people are performing. We can see the outcomes of their productivity and such. So there's certainly a part to play there. Andre, please.
Again, as an observation over the last year, I guess it was all hands on deck, let's go. We've all had attrition, because attrition is a fact of life, but in many countries and many sectors, it's reduced significantly for various reasons. I think, economic, etc. That may not last. So our contact centres in the future may have more attrition than we're experiencing the last year. And then you move into a world of you're onboarding backfill into a home-based environment, or potentially in the office, no home, which could lead to higher attrition on attrition and a spiral effect. And of course, that I'm talking about within a steady organisation. If you happen to be in a growth organisation where you're ramping up and you're facing this challenge of bringing people in a home environment, I think the role of workforce planning in terms of data and metrics and analytics, and to your point, Doug, early alerts, I think is massive.
Yeah, 100%. Andre, from you, I think you're probably one of those that fit in that 11%. I think from my memory. What in terms of the going to 100%? What new strategies are you considering? What do you think of the concept of 100% remote working? Or what do you think the advantages are?
I would start, if you allow me, by there are two main spectrums of this. One is as global companies scale up or have needs to recruit, you suddenly break your barriers of your pool of talent. It's not only where you are seated, you just can go to lower cities, smaller areas, other countries, and you can source talent in a global employment network, which is something that some companies would do it in the past, but I think no one ever had this power to just suddenly everyone can do it almost. So I think that's the start. And connected to that changes two main things. One, real estate. So there is, I can foresee a crisis on real estate for offices, because most people, there are two ways. Either you get a smaller office, but basically with more conditions, focus on well-being, really focus on getting the professionals that are on the physical space to be more comfortable. And then this kind of remote that you can be working, I don't know how many kilometers away from where the office is. That's the first big window that opens. Then when you look at the professionals you have in your company, and especially if everyone gets remote, you start seeing challenges like you just said, productivity, etc., etc. But then you can start tailoring it for the professionals you have. So like you said, some professionals will not want to be working from home forever. Some of them want to be in the office because they miss that human connection. But let's be realistic here, is that we don't know exactly what that will be in our current situation moving forward. So we need to plan for 50-50. So what if we need to be 100%? What can we do? And I think those savings on real estate that I mentioned before allow to invest in, again, development on the professionals, probably flex scheduling or just types of different working conditions with the professionals, and really creating packages of benefits that can really tie with this strategy of being at home. So, for instance, personally, if I would be able to work in the countryside, I would do it. I would prefer to work from home and have that piece of just going outside and away from the big cities. But I'm quite sure there are some people that miss that buzz in the big city, just the commute back home, etc., etc. So there is space for everyone, but I think companies really need to prepare and have plans for 100%, 50-50, just everyone back in the office, and really being realistic that the professionals that are seeing this as an opportunity, for instance, to go back to their home cities and just work from there in the same work they do, the same passion they had before, without that ability. This actually is a change in the economy. If you think about it, lower cities can then start seeing a potential way to get local economy to be boosted, because then you have employment on those lower tier cities. So I think there is loads of ways to look into this exercise. But really back to what you said, I think personally we need to make scenarios and really plan for, if we go to 100%, what does it mean? What challenges does it bring? Because it brings challenges. There are many studies being published that I think someone mentioned that productivity is increasing. I would question really hard. Probably is increasing to certain businesses, certain types of work, but not all. Some people are struggling definitely with these changes, and we need to plan. We need to figure out, because it's our job as WFM professionals, really make those plans and support the business on the decisions they are making.
I am conscious of time, and I think we've got 3 minutes left. So, and we had other questions and topics, of course, but as I predicted, when you get 4 people that are passionate and curious and can talk a bit as well, you can get some good conversation. So. Tony, just before would you add anything to that last topic from your perspective?
It was really interesting because Matt and I have not really spoken about this, but he's absolutely nailed what's happening in our organisation. So we found that attrition has been lower during the kind of lockdown period, but also we've struggled to recruit. So I do think we are storing up a potential spike when life does start to return to normal. I think Andre's comments around untapped areas, I think, is a really great one. You know, areas where we've potentially not recruited before, or regions we've not thought about previously. You know, this gives us the opportunity to really tap into those. I think more tactically, what we've used it remote working for is more of like the split shifts options, where we're asking, you know, advisors to work in the morning, then take the afternoon off, and then covered some hours in an evening, and really covering those kind of difficult spikes that we have without using part-time staff. So that's been a real bonus for us, and I think people, if you sat at home, you're more prepared to work that way than having to commute backwards and forwards to an office, where split shifts only really work for people that are very close to the office. So yeah, I think there's going to be a new norm where it all settles. I've not got a crystal ball, I wouldn't like to say. I think they'll probably we'll cherry pick the best bits out of it and try and keep those. But I think it's just accelerated, I think, what was already happening. You know, I've heard that said before, and I think it's true. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that draws us to close. I think probably is a good natural point to close. Just want to send a huge thank you to our sponsor, Assembled, who, by the way, Shiva had mentioned, if you haven't already checked them out, I'd highly recommend. They're one of the new breed of workforce management solution providers. So they're not one of the old school that have been around for decades. They're now heavily developing and innovating, pushing the boundaries. So definitely recommend checking them out. Thanks also Tony, Matt, Andre, fantastic conversation, super interesting conversations, appreciate that. Shiva, also thank you for putting together a fantastic organisation for us workforce management professionals. I think it's really great to be part of. And finally, but certainly not least, thank you to everyone here today who's joined and participated. Really appreciate you being here. And until next time, keep the faith, be safe, look after your health, but bye for now.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Doug, before we log off, I want to just call everyone. Can you have Rachel online? I mean, on the camera,
Sure.
And the organizing team. I see that Brian is also joined. Brian, I'll give you an access. So can we have you? We'll take one selfie. Oh yeah.
Oh, shame.
Thank you so much, Doug, Anthony, Andrew, Matthew, Rachel, for all the support that extended. Big thanks, to Assemble for being part of GWFM's EMEA chapter event. Truly memorable, and I see that a lot of discussions and highly thought-provoking and insightful. Say that. See that 2021 calls for 365 opportunities, which means like 365 ways to solve the business problem through WFM, right? So that's what WFM, GWFM, calls for giving knowledge and spreading knowledge and creating kind of knowledge sharing and professional networking. Thank you so much for taking your time out, Anthony, Andrew, and Matthew, and really thank you so much, and really overwhelming situation, and really great opportunity that having you with us in 2021 first event of GWFM. Truly honored. And
my pleasure. Thanks for asking us. Appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it was good. Enjoyed it.
Been good. It's been really good.
Thank you.
Well done, Doug, at the beginning.
You've been really well, Doug.
Yeah, when we covered at the beginning, Doug, with the mute, I was worried
Yeah.
for you right at the start. Cheers.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, audience, for all the patience that you had to listen to. Thank you so much.